Hi, this is Monica Lee, and I am teaching Watercolor 101 at Nicole's classes. And today I wanted to talk to you about paper. Paper that you choose to paint your watercolor on is so important. I think of it as buying a really good pair of shoes or carrying a nice handbag. It lays the foundation for your whole painting. There are 3 different types of paper that are commonly sold and 3 different weights of paper. There's rough paper, cold press paper, and hot press paper. Rough paper has a little bit of tooth to it, and as you drag a paintbrush over it, sometimes the paint falls into the divots, and if you draw it very lightly, it doesn't fall into the divots. Rough paper is this is just my explanation. I think it's kind of forgiving. You can scrape it. You can paint a lot of paint on a lot of layers. It's absorbent. I always think of painting on rough paper as like painting on a roll of Bounty paper towels. Cold press paper is very commonly used, probably the most commonly used paper, and it has a medium tooth to it, but it still is quite vibrant. I personally think rough paper isn't as vibrant. So cold press adds vibrancy, a little bit of tooth, a little bit forgiving. And then there's hot press paper, and hot press paper has been it's very smooth and slick, and it's been put through a roller, so it's real smooth. I personally like hot press paper the best because I think it sparkles. I like to see how the paint slides around on hot press paper. It's really a personal preference that you can play around with and see what you like the best. Then all those papers come in 3 different weights. They come in 140, 190, and 300 pounds. That's what, when you go to buy it, that's what it'll say. And what that is a thinner paper, just like a kind of a newsprint piece of paper. You know, if you put water on it, it's going to wrinkle very easily. And the 300 pound can sustain a lot of water on it without wrinkling. There is a common practice in watercolor that you stretch your watercolor paper, so when you paint on it and it gets wrinkly, then overnight it dries taut again. I find that if I buy 300-pound paper, that I don't have to stretch it. Kind of lazy, sort of works for me. So that's what I do. It costs a little bit more, but it takes out a step for me as I'm painting. You'll also see watercolor paper sold in a couple different ways. Sometimes you'll see watercolor paper sold on a 3-ring, like a ring binder like this. I don't actually recommend this. It's usually the lightest weight of paper. Paper is something you get what you pay for, and I would just really, and it's not terribly expensive, so I would stretch yourself and buy the best paper. So as nice as this is more of a kid thing to paint on this paper. You can also see it sold in blocks. This is a hot press watercolor paper block, and this is very common, and this is a bunch of sheets. I think there's like 20 sheets on here, and you'll open it up, you'll see the paper is here, and it's attached, it's all glued down, and this way you paint and it automatically stretches it for you. If you get a lot of water and paint on it, it'll get rumply and then it'll stretch. Now what happens after you're painting on each sheet, you have to get a really thin like X-Acto knife or palette knife, and you have to peel it off, which I have had great success with, and I've had miserable failures with. Sometimes the gum just messes up and you end up ripping your painting. Bummer, right? After you've worked so hard on it. But these are very commonly used, and maybe I'm just not that good at peeling it apart. And these are very easy to store. This, if you buy it, you'll see each one, so it's a little bit easy. This is the cold press version of it. I haven't peeled off the very first layer, but you can see again it has the gum, and here it has this white where I'm gonna peel back piece by piece. And these are sold in all different sizes, from really small travel to really large. And they're really convenient. I personally, I guess I don't like the Too convenient. I buy my watercolor paper in big sheets. This is just, I cut up the sheets. They're sold in big sheets, 22 by 30. So when you're walking out of the art store, or you can have them shipped to you, they ship very easily. It's not terribly expensive at all to have them shipped. I get them home, and then I cut them up into smaller, more manageable pieces. I actually cut them up really small, and this way I can scan them and play around and experiment on them. And what I usually do is my choice is, a 300-pound hot press paper. You can buy, 190-pound or cold press. You can buy 190-pound hot press. So when you go into the store, those are the things that you're looking for. So what you want to remember is that it's rough, cold press, hot press. So that's heavy tooth, medium tooth, slick. And then, of course, the weights are 140, 190, 300, with 300 being the thickest, basically. So I hope that helps.